will be kind of a benchtop review of my two favorite knives, guys. This is the Mora Eldris, which I took apart, actually put my own nylon strap here and a clip from an old cell phone case and made it into a belt clip so I can put it on my belt if I want to. I mainly wear it on my neck. I hardly ever put it on my belt, only if I go to an appointment and forgot that I had it on or something like that. I ended up taking the rubber handle off, reshaping the blade into a convex, pretty much. It's a Scandivex, and put a cherry, not cherry, but plumwood, wild plumwood that I have. Grows a lot out by where I live here in Oregon. We get a lot of wild plum trees, and that wood is incredibly good for making handles. Problem is you get a lot of worms and termites and stuff in it, so you have to make sure you have a good piece of it before you start going and making your handle, because then you'll find out that you have a worm down in there or whatnot. But it works really good. It's a good solid wood. It's very hard, very lightweight, but very good, very fibrous. It does not break on you. I think it's one of the best wood handle woods you can use. It's really good stuff, because I've used other woods that are more exotic and nice, and I tend to like this the best. It's easy to clean and ages really well. But anyways, these Eldris knives are really nice, but their handles are pretty small. Relatively, they're about that big. It fits in the palm of your hand. But I like having that extra pinky hold on my knives, and just putting an extra ½ an inch on there just changed this thing incredibly. It makes it such a good knife. And if you're interested in making one, I say do it. Try to do it. It's not that hard. The tang on these Eldris knives are pretty far. They're about ¼ of an inch to ½ an inch away from the end of the handle that they have them in, and pretty good. But these things cut just amazing, guys. This is my most favorite knife I've ever owned. This tiny little 2-inch knife blade you can do more work with this little knife than you can do with a regular knife. And I know that sounds funny, but if you're somebody who's into carving or like bushcraft, and you don't want to have, like, say you want to go on just a quick hiking trip and you're trying to kill weight, and you want a knife that's going to be able to carve and do all the things you need it to do, but you just really want to cut back on weight, this thing's amazing. It's just a wonderful blade. And if you're crafty and you think you can do yourself a wood handle, I say do it. But the stock ones, they're just as good. They're just as good, you know, especially if you have smaller hands than I do. I'm 6'3", and I got pretty big hands, so those handles are just too small for me. I mean, I can use them, but it's like really trying to use a little kid's knife. But, you know, for your kids and for your wife, for guys that have smaller hands, I think the rubber handled ones are pretty good. They are. For notching, I mean, this thing is just a dream for building notches, guys. It's just instant. I mean, you can just cut a notch so good, so clean, so quick with this little knife. And I love having the wood handle that I put on it, because it gives that extra grip, extra strength for me to really notch some pieces of wood. You can notch it out real quick. Trappers, people that like to build traps, I think this would be an excellent knife for trappers, for trying to get say you want to get a trap that's not working right, or even if you're building something and you want to get a little bit extra you know, ingenuity out of it and pretty much get it to work just right. This is almost like having sandpaper. You got a good spine on there. It's a good fire knife for starting fires. You know, if you want to make some kindling and some fluff for making your fires with your fire rods. I mean, look how good that spine is. And I've actually kind of roughed down that spine a little bit, so it wasn't as sharp. But you can get some really good fluff. But not just that, when you're building a trap or anything where you're trying to get it working good, or something that you just need to get sanded down a bit, it's kind of like having a little bit of sandpaper with you. And then this tip, that little edge that they put on there, that dual edge that they put on the Eldris, you can just scoop wood out. I mean, just barely touching the wood, and just, you can scoop it out. You can make a spoon really easy with them. Probably the easiest spoon knife I've ever used. I'm thinking about getting one of the Mora Light My Fire knives. because they actually have this same kind of tip design but on a bigger knife. So I'm thinking of scaling it down and putting a wood handle on one and turning it into a neck knife that's a little bit bigger than this one blade wise. But yeah, it's excellent, guys. Very, very good knife. Highly recommend it. It's about $24 for the wood stock one. These I might start making them and selling them as a hobby kind of thing. I've had a lot of people ask about them and like them, so I'm going to start making some this summer when summer kicks off and see what I can do. But it fits nice and snug in there. You just sand it down to get it to fit just right. And I put a little bit of electrical tape in here as it kind of got loose because I sanded it too much. I went and did that. I wanted to do something and I sanded it a little bit too much. But anyways, it actually fits super tight. I mean, it's snug in there, so it works. It's just kind of a rough scale thing that I'd never made a knife handle before, and that was my first couple knives that I did like that. And here's your Garberg. Has an Enzo sheath. They come with a leather sheath or a plastic sheath. They're pretty popular. Everybody knows about these knives. There's a lot of reviews. But these Enzo sheath guys, I'm telling you, get an Enzo trapper sheath or an Enzo what's it called? Camper. It's a little bit longer if you want your knife to go in deeper. I kind of like to have a good handle to grab hold of. I know a lot of you knife guys like me, we want to get a grip on that knife so we can get it out of that sheath. And since it's a dangler, it hangs really low. I mean, I can get that. That's just perfect for me. I like it. Might bug other people. It does come with a secondary bevel, which I removed and gave it a Scandivex. And I tell you what, this is one of the best knives I've ever had. Once I got this knife, I kind of just started getting rid of a lot of the knives I had, and I just love it. It gets more and more comfortable. This solid, dense grip is not like your cheaper Moras. A lot of people will say they don't like it, but I love it. This thing can take so much abuse. It gets a little bit softer as time goes on. It gets a nice grip on there. And it's like the Falkneven knives, kind of like the handles on those. I'd say pretty much kind of like that. Just a solid, warm handled knife. When it's cold outside, this thing does not get cold. It's so comfortable to work with. And you got to remember, from Sweden where these are made, they deal with a lot of snow and stuff. So they're from an ice country that deals with a lot of ice and cold. But look at this. I scaled this spine down because it was just cutting my thumb open. You can literally, you can make feather sticks with the spine on that thing. It's just crazy. But for feather sticking, you're not going to find a better knife. This thing is just amazing. And once you put your own edge on here, you put a micro convex on here, it makes that edge so strong. You lose a little bit of that deep cutting when you get rid of a Scandi, but I wanted my edge to be a little bit stronger so I can, cut into, don't have to worry about smacking a knot, denting in your knife. It's 14C stainless, and now they have the carbon, which I want to get the carbon one. It has a longer edge retention. You don't have to sharpen it as much, but honestly, I've hardly had to sharpen this since I've owned it. I mean, I've done my own shaping and stuff, but since I've owned it, I've never had any nicks or chips in it. I've had a few tiny little things, but I just strop them and put it on a rod. Just a little one of those white rods, the porcelain, whatever those are. That's all I've ever really used. And stropping it on a leather strop. This thing's been marvelous, man. It is just an amazing, amazing knife. I love it. I would not be afraid to be stuck in the woods with this knife, even though you can't, start a fire from whacking a rock on top of it because it's not carbon. You could easily make a bow drill set, with your shoestring or whatnot. And yeah, it's a great knife. Highly recommend it, guys. The 14C sharpens up really nice. Gets a really fine edge. I'd say it's a lot like, it kind of reminds me of, if I was going to compare it to a carbon, it's a lot like a high carbon. It's like a 1095 in the way that it gets its edge. Very easy to get an edge on 14C. You get a nice sharp fine edge. You just don't get that edge retention in the carbon still. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to share that with you. If you're looking to get a Mora, These stainless should be going down in price, the Garbergs, since they got the carbon out, so I'm thinking that the stainless might start dropping a bit. But right now, I think the price where it's at, around 70 bucks, you can't beat it, guys. I know a lot of people are like, well, Mora should be, you know, $15, $20 knife. You guys, this thing is, you know, I've seen knives that are selling at 120, 130, even more than that, and they're just as good, not as good, honestly. This thing is a solid knife. I'm telling you, man, it's got weight to it. You know, don't knock it just because it says Mora. You know, Mora makes some awesome cheap knives, low-cost knives actually, but not cheap. And this Garberg, 100%, totally recommend it. Eldris, get one, guys. Get one for your wife, get one for your kids. If you want to get them into cutting stuff and doing knives, get this thing. It's a beautiful knife. When I get a stock one, I'll shoot another video and show a stock one, and maybe show how I can turn it into a nice wood knife. Anyways, guys, God bless. See you next time.